What if the key to unlocking the mysteries of ancient civilizations isn't buried in dusty tomes or hidden deep underground, but right there on the surface, etched into the very maps they left behind? Picture a map centuries old, its edges worn and its ink faded, yet marked with cryptic symbols that seem to whisper secrets of a world long forgotten. These aren't just maps, they're time capsules revealing how ancient societies connected, traded, and thrived in ways that shaped the course of history. Today, we're diving into the fascinating world of 20 cryptic map markers, each one a clue to secret ancient trade routes that once linked empires, cultures, and economies. From mysterious symbols to hidden landmarks, these markers tell stories of exploration, ingenuity, and survival. So grab your magnifying glass, metaphorically speaking, because we're about to decode the secrets of the past and uncover the hidden pathways that changed the world. Ready to explore? Let's begin. The Silk Road, a name that conjures images of caravans laden with silk, spices, and precious gems, winding their way across vast deserts and towering mountain ranges. But what many don't realize is that beneath the surface of this legendary trade route lies a hidden language of symbols, etched into ancient maps to guide merchants through perilous journeys. These cryptic markers weren't just decorative, they were lifelines offering crucial information about where to find water, avoid danger, or rest safely. Take, for example, the Dragon's Eye, a symbol that appeared on maps near oases or underground springs. To the untrained eye, it might look like mere decoration, but to a weary merchant, it meant survival. Another common marker was the Serpent's Path, a winding line that warned travelers of treacherous mountain passes prone to landslides or ambushes. These symbols weren't universal. They varied by region and culture, reflecting the unique challenges and knowledge of local communities. Yet they all served the same purpose: to ensure that goods and lives could move safely across thousands of miles. As we delve deeper, you'll see how these symbols didn't just connect places. They connected people, weaving a tapestry of shared knowledge and trust across the ancient world. And as we move forward, we'll uncover how these early markers evolved, adapting to new cultures and new challenges, creating a legacy that still resonates today. The Mediterranean Sea, a sparkling expanse of blue, was once the lifeblood of ancient trade, and no one mastered its waters quite like the Phoenicians. Known as the merchants of the ancient world, these seafaring pioneers didn't just navigate the Mediterranean, they mapped it with a precision that still leaves historians in awe. Among their most fascinating contributions was the Phoenician Star Compass, a system of star-shaped markers etched into maps that served as both a navigational guide and a testament to their ingenuity. These markers weren't arbitrary, they were meticulously placed to denote key trade hubs, each one a beacon for ships laden with goods like purple dye, glass, and cedar wood. But what made these star symbols truly remarkable was their connection to the heavens. The Phoenicians were celestial navigators, using the stars to chart their course across the open sea. Each star-shaped marker corresponded to a specific constellation or celestial event, allowing sailors to pinpoint their location even when land was nowhere in sight. Take the port of Tyre, for example, a bustling hub marked by a star that aligned with the rising of the constellation Orion. This wasn't just a coincidence, it was a deliberate act of mapping that combined celestial knowledge with practical navigation. Carthage, another star-marked port, was similarly tied to the position of the North Star, ensuring that traders could find their way even in the darkest nights. Historians often marvel at the precision of these markers, noting how they reflect the Phoenicians' deep understanding of both astronomy and geography. But beyond their technical brilliance, these star compasses tell a story of connection. They weren't just tools for navigation, They were symbols of a vast trade network that linked cultures, economies, and ideas across the ancient world. As we sail further into this exploration, we'll uncover how these maritime trade routes didn't just move goods, they moved history itself, shaping the rise and fall of empires. And next, we'll set our sights on the waves themselves, diving into the secrets of ancient maritime maps and the daring voyages they inspired. While the Phoenicians mastered the seas, the Vikings carved their legacy into stone, literally. Far from the warm Mediterranean waters, the Norse explorers navigated the frigid North Atlantic, relying on cryptic rune stones to guide their journeys. These weren't just decorative carvings, they were practical markers, etched with symbols that held the key to survival and success in harsh, uncharted territories. Among the most significant was the Ingwaz rune, a symbol shaped like an X or diamond, often found near fertile lands and bustling trading posts. To the Vikings, this wasn't just a sign. It was a promise of resources, a beacon for weary travelers seeking shelter, food, or a place to trade their wares. But these runes did more than mark locations, they told stories. Archaeologists have uncovered rune stones in places like Greenland and Newfoundland, bearing inscriptions that detail not only the geography, but also the triumphs and trials of those who traveled there. One famous example, the Kingatorsuaq runestone discovered in Greenland, records the names of Norse explorers who ventured into the icy unknown, leaving behind a permanent record of their presence. These runes weren't just practical tools, they were a form of communication, a way for the Vikings to leave their mark on the world and connect with future generations. What makes these markers even more fascinating is how they reveal the Vikings' deep understanding of their environment. The placement of the Ingwaz rune, for instance, often corresponded with areas rich in natural resources, suggesting that the Vikings weren't just wandering aimlessly, they were mapping the land with precision and purpose. And while the runes themselves may seem cryptic to us today, they were a universal language for the Norse, a way to share knowledge and ensure the survival of their communities. These stones didn't just guide traders and explorers, they wove a network of trust and cooperation across vast distances, linking settlements from Scandinavia to the edges of the known world. As we move from the icy North Atlantic to the sun-drenched landscapes of Africa, we'll see how ancient trade routes took on new forms, shaped by the unique challenges and opportunities of the continent. But for now, let's pause and marvel at the ingenuity of the Vikings, who turned stone into a map and runes into a lifeline, carving their stories into the very earth they traversed. The Sahara Desert, stretching endlessly under a blazing sun, might seem like an insurmountable barrier, but for centuries it was anything but, thanks to the ingenuity of Saharan traders who turned this unforgiving landscape into a thriving network of commerce. At the heart of their success were cryptic markers, subtle yet vital signs etched into the desert sands and stones, guiding caravans across the vast expanse. Among the most iconic was the camel's footprint, a symbol that pointed the way to life-saving oases and rest stops. To the untrained eye, it might look like a simple indentation in the sand, but to a desert trader, it was a lifeline signaling water, shelter, and the chance to regroup before the next grueling leg of the journey. These markers weren't randomly placed, they were the product of generations of knowledge passed down through oral traditions and practical experience. Each symbol told a story of survival, of cooperation, and of the immense challenges faced by those who dared to cross the world's largest hot desert. The trans-Saharan trade routes were more than just pathways, they were arteries of connection, linking the gold-rich kingdoms of sub-Saharan Africa with the bustling markets of North Africa and beyond. Salt, often referred to as white gold, was one of the most prized commodities mined in the Sahara and traded for gold, ivory, and spices. But moving these goods across such extreme terrain required more than just physical endurance. It demanded an intimate understanding of the desert's secrets. That's where the cryptic markers came in. Alongside the camel's footprint, other symbols like the Star of the Sands, a cluster of small stones arranged in a star pattern, marked safe routes through shifting dunes, while the lion's paw warned of areas prone to sandstorms or bandit ambushes. These symbols were more than just practical tools. They were a language of trust, allowing traders from different cultures and regions to navigate the desert together, united by a shared goal. One of the most remarkable aspects of these trade routes was how they fostered cultural exchange. As caravans moved southward, they carried not only goods but also ideas, religions, and technologies, weaving a tapestry of interconnected societies. The city of Timbuktu, for example, became a melting pot of cultures, its libraries and universities filled with knowledge from across the Islamic world and beyond. And it was the cryptic markers of the Sahara that made this possible, ensuring that traders could traverse the desert safely and reliably. These markers weren't static, they evolved over time, adapting to new challenges and incorporating knowledge from the diverse peoples who used them. Some even blended Islamic geometric patterns with traditional African symbols, reflecting the cultural fusion that defined the trans-Saharan trade. As we leave the golden sands of the Sahara behind, we'll journey eastward to explore another legendary network of trade routes, one that spanned mountains, rivers, and vast plains, connecting the empires of Asia. From the deserts of Africa to the Silk Road's winding paths, the story of ancient trade is one of resilience, innovation, and the unbreakable human spirit. But for now, let's take a moment to appreciate the Saharan traders, whose ingenuity turned a barren desert into a bridge between worlds, proving that even the harshest landscapes can be conquered with knowledge and determination. The spice route, a name that evokes the rich aromas of cinnamon, cloves, and pepper, carried across continents by merchants who braved vast distances and unknown dangers. But this legendary trade network wasn't just about the spices themselves. It was also about the cryptic landmarks that guided traders through a labyrinth of markets, ports, and perilous terrains. Along this route, symbols like the pepper pod and the elephant's trunk weren't just decorative, they were essential to the survival and success of the spice trade. The pepper pod, for instance, was a simple yet ingenious marker carved into rocks or painted on walls near bustling spice markets in places like India and Sri Lanka. To a trader, this symbol was a beacon, signaling not just a place to sell or buy spices, but also a hub of cultural exchange where ideas, languages, and traditions mingled as freely as the goods themselves. Meanwhile, the elephant's trunk was a symbol found near ports, particularly in Southeast Asia, where spices were loaded onto ships bound for the Middle East and Europe. This marker didn't just point to a location, it told a story of collaboration between land and sea, where massive ships carried precious cargo across the Indian Ocean, linking continents in a web of commerce. These cryptic symbols were more than just navigational aids. They were a language of trade, understood by merchants from vastly different cultures. A trader from Venice might not speak the same language as a merchant from Malacca, but they could both read the pepper pod and know they'd found a place to do business. This shared understanding was vital in a world where trust was as valuable as the spices being traded, and the stakes were high. A single misstep could mean the loss of an entire shipment, or worse, a trader's life. That's why these markers were so precise, often placed at key junctures where routes converged or diverged, ensuring that even the most inexperienced trader could navigate the complexities of the spice route. One of the most fascinating aspects of these markers is how they reveal the interconnectedness of the ancient world. Take the elephant's trunk, for example. This symbol wasn't just a nod to the animals that helped transport goods overland. It was a testament to the ingenuity of traders who adapted to their environment. In places like Sumatra, where elephants were used to carry spices from inland plantations to coastal ports, the elephant's trunk became a universal sign of efficiency and reliability. It's a reminder that the spice route wasn't just a path for goods. It was a living, evolving network shaped by the people who traveled it and the challenges they faced. As we trace the winding paths of the spice route, it's impossible not to marvel at how these cryptic markers facilitated one of the most lucrative trades in history. They weren't just symbols, they were the glue that held this vast network together, ensuring that spices from the far corners of Asia could reach the tables of European nobility. And while the spice route may have faded into history, its legacy lives on in the cultures, cuisines, and connections it helped create. But the story of ancient trade routes doesn't end here. As we leave the bustling markets of the spice route behind, we'll journey to a new frontier, the soaring mountains and lush jungles of South America, where another network of cryptic markers reveals the secrets of a trade empire that rivaled even the Silk Road in its reach and influence. High in the Andes Mountains, where the air grows thin and the terrain becomes a labyrinth of peaks and valleys, the Inca Empire built one of the most impressive road systems in history. Stretching over 15,000 miles, this network wasn't just a feat of engineering. It was a masterpiece of communication, marked by cryptic symbols that guided travelers through the rugged landscape. Among the most intriguing were the Condor's wing and the sun disk, markers that served as both navigational tools and cultural touchstones. The Condor's wing, often carved into stone or painted on cliff faces, signaled the presence of mountain passes, crucial points where the steep Andean slopes gave way to manageable pathways. For Inca messengers, known as chasquis, these symbols were lifesavers, offering a clear route through otherwise treacherous terrain. But they weren't just practical, they were deeply symbolic. The condor, revered as a sacred bird, represented the connection between the earthly and the divine, reminding travelers of the spiritual journey as much as the physical one. Equally significant was the sun disk, a radiant symbol that marked sacred sites and bustling trade hubs. These disks, often etched into temple walls or placed at crossroads, were more than just directional markers. They were beacons of cultural and economic activity. In cities like Cusco, the heart of the Inca Empire, the sun disk could be found near markets where goods like maize, textiles, and gold exchanged hands. These weren't just goods, they were symbols of power, wealth, and connection, traded along routes that linked distant regions of the empire. The markers ensured that even in the most remote areas, travelers knew where to find resources, rest, and community. What makes these symbols truly remarkable is how they reflect the Incas' deep understanding of their environment. The condor's wing, for instance, wasn't placed arbitrarily. It was carefully positioned to align with natural landmarks like distinctive rock formations or the flow of rivers, ensuring accuracy even in the harshest conditions. Similarly, the sun disk often coincided with astronomical events such as solstices, blending practical navigation with spiritual significance. This dual purpose highlights the Incas' ability to merge the practical with the profound, creating a system that was as much about survival as it was about meaning. The Inca road system wasn't just a means of transportation, it was a lifeline that held the empire together. Goods like maize from the fertile valleys, textiles woven in the highlands, and gold mined from the mountains flowed along these routes, connecting communities and sustaining the empire's economy. But it wasn't just about trade, it was about unity. The cryptic markers along the roads weren't just for the elite or the merchants, they were for everyone, a testament to the Incas' belief in shared knowledge and collective progress. This inclusivity is part of what made the Inca road system so enduring, even long after the empire itself had faded. As we leave the mountainous trails of the Andes, we set our sights on a new frontier, the vast expanse of the Indian Ocean, where another set of cryptic markers guided sailors across uncharted waters. From the peaks of South America to the waves of the Indian Ocean, the story of ancient trade routes is one of ingenuity, connection, and the unyielding human drive to explore. But before we dive into the maritime world, let's take a moment to appreciate the Inca, whose road system and cryptic markers remind us that even the most challenging landscapes can be navigated with skill, purpose, and a touch of sacred symbolism. The Indian Ocean, a vast expanse of shimmering blue, was once the stage for one of the most dynamic and far-reaching trade networks in history. For ancient sailors, navigating these waters wasn't just about skill, it was about survival. And to guide them through the unpredictable currents and monsoon winds, they relied on a hidden language of symbols etched into maps and carved into coastal landmarks. Among the most crucial was the fishhook, a seemingly simple marker that held the key to thriving fishing grounds and bustling trading ports. To the uninitiated, it might look like a basic shape, but to a sailor, it was a lifeline, pointing to areas rich with fish essential for sustenance on long voyages, and safe harbors where goods could be exchanged. These symbols weren't just practical, they were a testament to the ingenuity of ancient mariners who turned the challenges of the sea into opportunities for connection. The monsoon winds, which blew predictably in alternating directions depending on the season, were both a blessing and a curse for sailors. They could propel ships swiftly across the ocean, but they also required precise timing and knowledge to navigate safely. That's where cryptic markers like the fishhook came into play. These symbols were often placed near coastal areas where the winds shifted, signaling not only safe harbors but also the best times to set sail. For example, a fishhook near the port of Mombasa in present-day Kenya would indicate not just a place to trade ivory and gold, but also a strategic point to wait for the winds to change before heading to India or Arabia. This intricate dance of wind and water was a delicate balance, and the markers ensured that sailors could make the most of nature's rhythms without being caught off guard. What makes these nautical symbols truly fascinating is how they reflect the interconnectedness of the Indian Ocean trade network. The fishhook wasn't just used by one group of sailors, it was a universal symbol understood by traders from East Africa, Arabia, and India alike. This shared language of navigation allowed goods like spices, textiles, and gemstones to flow freely across thousands of miles, linking distant cultures and economies. Take the port of Zanzibar, for instance, where fishhook markers guided ships laden with cloves and cinnamon to Arabian markets. Or consider the coast of Gujarat in India, where the same symbol directed traders to ports bustling with cotton and indigo. These markers weren't just about commerce, they were about communication, fostering a sense of trust and cooperation among people who might never meet but relied on each other's knowledge to thrive. The Indian Ocean trade routes were more than just pathways for goods, they were conduits for ideas, religions, and technologies. The fishhook and other markers didn't just guide ships, they facilitated the exchange of knowledge from Arabic astronomy to Indian shipbuilding techniques. This blending of cultures left a lasting legacy, shaping the identities of coastal communities and influencing the course of history. Yet, for all their sophistication, these markers were often subtle, blending seamlessly into the landscape. Some were carved into rocks along the shoreline, while others were painted on lighthouses or etched into navigational charts. Their understated presence is a reminder that sometimes the most powerful tools are those that work quietly behind the scenes. As we leave the sun-drenched shores of the Indian Ocean, we turn our gaze toward the cobblestone streets and bustling marketplaces of medieval Europe. There, another set of cryptic markers awaited traders, guiding them through a labyrinth of trade routes that connected cities, kingdoms, and cultures. From the monsoon-driven voyages of the Indian Ocean to the guild-regulated markets of Europe, the story of ancient trade is one of resilience, innovation, and the unbreakable bonds that tie humanity together. But before we step into the world of medieval merchants, let's take a moment to appreciate the sailors of the Indian Ocean, whose mastery of wind, wave, and symbol turned a vast and unpredictable sea into a bridge between worlds. In the bustling marketplaces and cobblestone streets of medieval Europe, a powerful alliance of merchants and traders rose to prominence, shaping the economic landscape of the continent. Enter the Hanseatic League, a network of cities and guilds that dominated trade across northern Europe from the 12th to the 17th centuries. But what set this league apart wasn't just its wealth or influence, it was the secret language of symbols that guided its operations. Cryptic markers like the anchor and the key weren't just decorative. They were the lifeblood of the Hanseatic trade network, ensuring that goods moved swiftly, securely, and efficiently across vast distances. The anchor symbol, often carved into the walls of warehouses or painted on signposts, was more than just a nod to the sea. For Hanseatic merchants, it marked secure storage facilities where goods like timber, furs, and amber could be safely stored before being shipped to distant markets. These warehouses were strategically located in key cities like Lübeck, Hamburg, and Bruges, acting as hubs where goods from Scandinavia, Russia, and the Baltic region were collected, sorted, and redistributed. The anchor wasn't just a marker. It was a promise, a guarantee that the goods stored within were protected by the League's strict regulations and mutual trust among its members. This system of trust was crucial in an era where piracy and theft were constant threats, and the anchor became a symbol of reliability in an unpredictable world. Equally significant was the key, a symbol that often appeared near entrances to guild halls or trading posts. To the untrained eye, it might seem like a simple design, but to a Hanseatic merchant, it signaled a place of authority and negotiation. The key marked locations where contracts were signed, disputes were settled, and deals were brokered, ensuring that trade flowed smoothly even between merchants who spoke different languages or hailed from rival cities. This symbol wasn't just about commerce, it was about unity, embodying the League's mission to create a cooperative network that transcended local rivalries and political boundaries. The key unlocked not just doors but opportunities, fostering a sense of shared purpose among the League's diverse members. What makes these markers truly fascinating is how they reflect the Hanseatic League's innovative approach to trade. Unlike earlier systems that relied on informal agreements, the League established standardized practices and symbols that were universally understood. This level of organization allowed goods to move seamlessly from the forests of Scandinavia to the markets of Flanders, creating a trade network that rivaled even the Silk Road in its complexity and reach. And while the League's power eventually waned, its legacy lives on in the cities and cultures it connected, as well as in the cryptic markers that once guided its merchants. As we leave the bustling ports and guild halls of medieval Europe behind, our journey takes us eastward to a land of ancient traditions and legendary trade routes. From the Hanseatic League's anchor and key to the intricate symbols of ancient China, the story of trade is one of ingenuity, connection, and the enduring human drive to explore. But before we step into the world of Chinese merchants and their cryptic markers, let's take a moment to appreciate the Hanseatic League, whose secret signs remind us that even in a fractured world, unity and trust can forge pathways to prosperity. High in the misty mountains of southwestern China, where jagged peaks meet lush valleys, a lesser-known but equally fascinating trade route once thrived: the Tea Horse Road. While the Silk Road captured the imagination of the world, this ancient network quietly connected the tea-rich regions of Yunnan and Sichuan with the horse-breeding lands of Tibet. But what made this route truly remarkable were the cryptic markers that guided traders through its winding paths. Symbols like the tea leaf and the horse's hoof weren't just decorative. They were vital signposts ensuring that tea, horses, and silk flowed seamlessly across some of the most challenging terrains on Earth. The tea leaf symbol, often carved into stone or painted on wooden signposts, marked the locations of tea plantations and processing centers. For traders, this was more than just a waypoint. It was a promise of high-quality tea, prized for its medicinal properties and cultural significance. In regions like Pur, where tea trees grew wild in the dense forests, the tea leaf was a beacon drawing merchants from as far away as Tibet and Central Asia. These markers weren't just about commerce, they were a testament to the deep connection between the land and its people, who had mastered the art of cultivating and processing tea over centuries. Equally important was the horse's hoof, a symbol found near trading stations where horses were bred, trained, and exchanged. For Tibetan traders who relied on sturdy horses to navigate the rugged mountain passes, these markers were a lifeline. The horse's hoof didn't just point to a location, it signaled trust and reliability, ensuring that traders could find the best animals for their journeys. This exchange of tea for horses wasn't just a transaction. It was a symbiotic relationship binding the economies and cultures of China and Tibet together. The tea sustained Tibetan communities, while the horses enabled Chinese merchants to transport goods across vast distances, creating a cycle of mutual dependence that lasted for centuries. What makes these markers so intriguing is how they reflect the ingenuity of the traders who used them. The tea horse road wasn't just a path for goods, it was a living network shaped by the people who traveled it and the challenges they faced. Symbols like the tea leaf and horse's hoof weren't static, they evolved over time, incorporating new knowledge and adapting to changing conditions. For example, as the demand for tea grew, the tea leaf began to appear in more remote areas, marking new plantations and processing centers that expanded the reach of the trade network. Similarly, the horse's hoof became more detailed, with variations that indicated the quality and breed of the horses available at each station. This route wasn't just about trade, it was about connection. The tea horse road linked the diverse cultures of China and Tibet, fostering an exchange of ideas, traditions, and technologies that enriched both regions. Buddhist monks, for instance, traveled along the road, spreading their teachings and building monasteries that became centers of learning and culture. Meanwhile, Tibetan horses, renowned for their strength and endurance, became prized assets in Chinese armies, shaping the balance of power in the region. The cryptic markers along the tea horse road weren't just guides, they were symbols of a shared journey, a testament to the resilience and resourcefulness of the people who navigated this ancient network. As we leave the misty mountains of China behind, we turn our gaze to another continent, where a different set of cryptic markers tells the story of a trade empire that flourished in the heart of the Americas. From the tea horse road to the jungles and highlands of Mesoamerica, the story of ancient trade is one of adaptation, innovation, and the unyielding human spirit. But before we explore the secrets of the Maya and Aztec trade routes, let's take a moment to appreciate the traders of the tea horse road, whose cryptic markers remind us that even the most remote paths can become bridges between worlds. Deep within the dense jungles of Mesoamerica, where ancient cities like Tikal and Chichen Itza rose from the earth, the Maya crafted a trade network as intricate as the carvings on their temples. At the heart of this network was jade, a stone so revered that it symbolized life, power, and the divine. But transporting this precious resource across sprawling rainforests and rugged terrain required more than just physical effort. It demanded a sophisticated system of navigation. Enter the cryptic markers of the Maya, symbols like the jade serpent, which guided traders to the sources of this sacred stone and beyond. These markers weren't just practical tools, they were a language of trade, connecting distant regions and cultures in a web of commerce and spirituality. The jade serpent, a symbol etched into stone stelae or painted on cave walls, was more than just a directional sign. To the Maya, the serpent represented renewal and transformation, mirroring the journey of jade from the earth to the hands of artisans and rulers. This symbol often appeared near jade mines in the Motagua River Valley of present-day Guatemala, one of the few places in the world where the stone could be found. For traders, the jade serpent was a beacon, signaling not just the location of jade, but also the presence of trade hubs where goods like obsidian, cacao, and feathers could be exchanged. These hubs were more than markets, they were cultural crossroads where ideas, rituals, and innovations flowed as freely as the goods themselves. Jade wasn't just a commodity for the Maya, it was a cornerstone of their identity. Kings and queens adorned themselves with jade jewelry to signify their divine right to rule, while artisans crafted intricate jade masks and figurines for religious ceremonies. The stone's vibrant green color was associated with water, fertility, and the life-giving forces of nature, making it a symbol of both earthly power and spiritual connection. But transporting jade from the mines to the cities was no small feat. The trade routes were fraught with challenges, from dense jungle undergrowth to the threat of bandits. That's where the cryptic markers came in. Alongside the jade serpent, symbols like the obsidian blade and the cacao pod guided traders through the labyrinthine network, ensuring that even the most valuable goods could reach their destinations safely. The obsidian blade, for instance, marked areas where this volcanic glass was mined and traded. Obsidian was essential for tools, weapons, and ceremonial objects, and its trade routes intersected with those of jade, creating a network of mutual dependence. Similarly, the cacao pod symbolized the trade of cacao beans, which were not only used to make chocolate but also served as a form of currency. These markers didn't just facilitate trade, they wove a tapestry of cultural and economic exchange that spanned the Maya world, from the highlands of Guatemala to the lowlands of the Yucatan Peninsula. What makes these markers truly fascinating is how they reveal the Mayas' deep understanding of their environment and their ability to adapt to its challenges. The jade serpent, for example, often appeared near natural landmarks like waterfalls or caves, which served as rest stops and gathering points for traders. This blending of the practical and the symbolic highlights the Mayas' holistic approach to trade, where commerce, spirituality, and community were inseparable. And while the Maya civilization may have faded, their cryptic markers remain as a testament to their ingenuity, reminding us that even the densest jungle can be navigated with knowledge, skill, and a touch of sacred symbolism. As we leave the lush landscapes of Mesoamerica behind, our journey takes us to another ancient empire, one that spanned deserts, mountains, and fertile plains. From the jade serpent of the Maya to the cryptic markers of the Persian Empire, the story of ancient trade is one of resilience, innovation, and the unyielding human drive to connect. But before we explore the secrets of Persian trade networks, let's take a moment to appreciate the Maya, whose mastery of both earth and symbol turned jade into more than just a stone. It became a bridge between worlds. Stretching over 1,500 miles, the Royal Road of the Persian Empire was more than just a marvel of ancient engineering. It was a lifeline that connected the vast and diverse regions of one of history's greatest empires. From the bustling markets of Susa to the majestic palaces of Persepolis, this road carried not only goods but also ideas, soldiers, and royal decrees. But what truly set this route apart were the cryptic markers that guided travelers through its length, ensuring that messages, goods, and people moved with remarkable speed and precision. Among the most prominent was the lion's paw, a symbol etched into stone pillars or painted on roadside structures, To the untrained eye, it might have seemed like a simple decoration, but to those who traversed the royal road, it was a vital signpost. The lion's paw marked rest stops and royal courier stations, places where weary travelers could find shelter, fresh horses, and even official messengers ready to carry urgent dispatches across the empire. These markers weren't just practical, they were a testament to the Persian Empire's mastery of organization and communication. The lion's paw, for instance, wasn't randomly placed, it was strategically positioned at intervals of about 15 miles, roughly a day's journey for a traveler on foot or horseback. This careful planning allowed the Persian postal system, known as the Angarium, to function with astonishing efficiency. Royal couriers, known as chapars, could travel the entire length of the royal road in just 7 days, thanks to a network of relay stations marked by these symbols. Imagine a system so advanced that a message from the emperor could reach the farthest corners of the empire in less than a week, an achievement that would remain unmatched for centuries. But the lion's paw wasn't just about speed, it was about reliability. These markers ensured that travelers, whether they were merchants, soldiers, or diplomats, could navigate the road safely and confidently. In a world where bandits and harsh terrain posed constant threats, the lion's paw was a promise of safety and support. It also reflected the empire's commitment to unity, serving as a reminder that even the most distant provinces were connected to the heart of Persian power. This sense of cohesion was vital for an empire that stretched from the Indus River to the Aegean Sea, encompassing countless cultures and languages. The royal road wasn't just a physical path, it was a symbol of Persian ingenuity and ambition. The cryptic markers along its length were more than navigational aids, they were a language of empire, a way to communicate authority, order, and connection. And while the Persian Empire eventually fell, its legacy lives on in the roads and markers that once guided its people. These symbols remind us that even the most sprawling empires are built on the foundations of trust, organization, and the simple yet profound act of marking a path. As we leave the royal road behind, our journey takes us westward to the sun-drenched shores of ancient Greece. There, another set of cryptic markers awaited traders, guiding them through a world of city-states, myths, and maritime adventures. But before we step into the world of Greek trade routes, let's take a moment to appreciate the Persians, whose mastery of road building and communication laid the groundwork for the interconnected world we know today. The Mediterranean, with its sparkling blue waters and countless islands, was the stage for one of history's most influential trade networks, and the ancient Greeks were its master navigators. At the heart of their commerce was olive oil, a commodity so valuable it was often referred to as liquid gold. But how did Greek traders ensure that their prized oil, along with wine, pottery, and other goods, reached far-flung colonies and markets? The answer lies in a cryptic symbol, the olive branch etched into stone markers, painted on amphorae, or carved into the walls of bustling ports. This simple yet powerful symbol guided traders across the Mediterranean, connecting the Greek mainland to colonies as distant as Sicily, southern Italy, and even the Black Sea. The olive branch wasn't just a decorative motif, it was a practical tool for navigation and trade. In ports like Piraeus, the bustling harbor of Athens, this symbol marked warehouses and markets where olive oil and wine were stored and sold. For a trader arriving from a distant colony, spotting the olive branch was like finding a beacon of opportunity, a place to unload goods, restock supplies, and connect with other merchants. But its significance went beyond commerce. The olive tree itself was sacred to the Greeks, a symbol of peace, prosperity, and the divine favor of Athena, their patron goddess. By using the olive branch as a marker, traders weren't just signaling trade hubs, they were invoking the cultural and spiritual values that united the Greek world. These markers weren't limited to the mainland. As Greek colonies spread across the Mediterranean, so too did the olive branch. In Sicily, for example, where fertile soils produced some of the finest olive oil, the symbol could be found near coastal markets and storage facilities. Similarly, in the Black Sea region, where Greek colonies traded olive oil and wine for grain and fish, the olive branch marked safe harbors and thriving marketplaces. This network of symbols created a shared language of trade, allowing merchants from different regions to navigate the complexities of Mediterranean commerce with ease. It was a system built on trust and mutual understanding, ensuring that even in a world of diverse cultures and languages, the flow of goods remained steady and reliable. What makes these markers truly remarkable is how they reflect the interconnectedness of the ancient Greek world. The olive branch wasn't just a tool for trade, it was a symbol of cultural unity. Greek colonies, though far from the mainland, maintained strong ties to their homeland, sharing not only goods but also ideas, art, and religious practices. The olive oil trade, in particular, played a central role in this exchange, as amphorae stamped with the olive branch symbol carried not just oil but also a piece of Greek identity to distant shores. This blending of commerce and culture helped shape the Mediterranean into a vibrant, interconnected region, laying the groundwork for the empires that would follow. As we leave the olive groves and bustling ports of ancient Greece behind, we turn our gaze to another Mediterranean power, one that built on the foundations laid by the Greeks and expanded trade to unprecedented heights. From the olive branch of the Greeks to the cryptic markers of ancient Rome, the story of Mediterranean trade is one of innovation, connection, and the enduring legacy of a shared cultural heritage. But before we explore the secrets of Roman trade routes, let's take a moment to appreciate the Greeks, whose mastery of commerce and navigation turned the Mediterranean into a bridge between worlds. The Roman Empire, stretching from the misty highlands of Scotland to the sun-baked deserts of North Africa, was a marvel of organization and ambition. At the heart of its success was an unparalleled network of roads, over 50,000 miles of meticulously engineered pathways that connected cities, forts, and markets across the empire. But what truly set this system apart were the cryptic markers known as milestones, which transformed these roads into more than just routes. They became a language of empire. Etched with numbers, symbols, and sometimes even the names of emperors, these milestones were more than just markers of distance. They were tools of control, communication, and connection. Take, for example, the mil passus, a phrase inscribed on many milestones that denoted a Roman mile, roughly equivalent to 1,000 paces. To a traveler or merchant, spotting this symbol meant knowing exactly how far they were from the next town, fort, or trade hub. But these markers weren't just about numbers, they were about reassurance. In a world where bandits and harsh terrain posed constant threats, the milestones offered a sense of security, guiding travelers through unfamiliar landscapes with precision. For merchants transporting goods like olive oil, wine, or grain, this precision was invaluable. A milestone near Brundisium, for instance, might indicate that the bustling port of Rome was just 100 miles away, a crucial piece of information for planning rest stops or calculating travel times. The milestones also played a vital role in the empire's military strategy. Roman legions, renowned for their discipline and speed, relied on these markers to move troops and supplies efficiently across vast distances. A milestone near the Rhine River, for example, might mark the distance to the nearest fort, ensuring that reinforcements could reach the frontier quickly in times of crisis. This system wasn't just about logistics, it was about power. By marking their roads so meticulously, the Romans asserted their dominance over the landscape, turning even the remotest corners of the empire into extensions of their authority. What makes these markers truly fascinating is how they reflect the Romans' ability to blend practicality with propaganda. Many milestones bore inscriptions honoring the emperor, proclaiming his achievements and divine favor. A traveler passing a milestone in Gaul might read a dedication to Augustus, while another in Egypt might see a tribute to Trajan. These inscriptions weren't just decorative, they were reminders of the empire's unity and strength, reinforcing the idea that even the farthest provinces were part of a greater whole. This dual-purpose practical and symbolic highlights the Romans' genius for communication, turning simple stones into tools of governance and identity. As we leave the cobblestone roads of the Roman Empire behind, our journey takes us to a land of pyramids, pharaohs, and the life-giving waters of the Nile. From the meticulously marked highways of Rome to the cryptic symbols of ancient Egypt, the story of trade routes is one of ingenuity, connection, and the enduring human drive to explore. But before we uncover the secrets of Egyptian trade networks, let's take a moment to appreciate the Romans, whose milestones remind us that even the simplest markers can shape the course of history. The Nile River, the lifeblood of ancient Egypt, was more than just a source of water. It was a highway of commerce, culture, and connection. Along its fertile banks, cryptic markers in the form of hieroglyphs guided traders, farmers, and officials through a network of trade hubs and granaries that sustained one of history's most enduring civilizations. These hieroglyphic symbols weren't just ornate carvings, they were practical tools etched into stone or painted on temple walls that ensured the smooth flow of goods like grain, gold, and papyrus between Upper and Lower Egypt. One of the most prominent symbols was the ankh, often found near granaries and storage facilities. To the untrained eye, it might resemble a simple cross with a loop at the top, but to an ancient Egyptian, it was a powerful sign of life and abundance, marking places where the empire's wealth was stored and distributed. Granaries, crucial for storing the surplus grain that fed Egypt's population, were often marked by the ankh or the jed, a symbol resembling a pillar. These markers weren't just decorative, they were functional, signaling to traders and officials where to deposit or collect grain. In cities like Thebes and Memphis, hieroglyphs near the riverbanks indicated the locations of these granaries, ensuring that the bounty of the Nile's annual floods could be efficiently managed. The jed, in particular, symbolized stability and endurance, reflecting the empire's reliance on its agricultural wealth to maintain its power and prosperity. These granaries weren't just storage facilities. They were the backbone of Egypt's economy, and the hieroglyphs that marked them were a language of survival. Gold, another cornerstone of Egypt's wealth, also had its own set of cryptic markers. The neb, a symbol resembling a basket, often appeared near mines and trade routes in Nubia, the region to the south of Egypt known for its gold deposits. This symbol didn't just mark a location, it told a story of extraction and exchange, guiding traders to the sources of this precious metal. The gold trade was vital, not just for Egypt's economy, but also for its religious and cultural identity. Pharaohs adorned themselves with gold to symbolize their divine connection, and temples gleamed with gold leaf, reflecting the sun god Ra's eternal light. The Neb hieroglyph was a reminder that even the most valuable resources were part of a larger system of trade and trust. Papyrus, the paper of the ancient world, was another key commodity traded along the Nile. Hieroglyphs like the sesh, a symbol resembling a roll of papyrus, marked workshops and trading posts where this versatile material was produced and exchanged. Papyrus wasn't just used for writing, it was essential for record-keeping, religious texts, and even boat construction. The sesh symbol, often found near the Nile Delta, where papyrus plants thrived, was a testament to the ingenuity of the Egyptians, who turned a simple reed into a cornerstone of their civilization's communication and commerce. What makes these hieroglyphic markers truly remarkable is how they reflect the interconnectedness of ancient Egyptian society. The Nile wasn't just a river, it was a network of trade, culture, and spirituality, and the hieroglyphs that lined its banks were the threads that wove this network together. From the granaries of Thebes to the gold mines of Nubia, these symbols ensured that goods, ideas, and people could move freely across the land, sustaining the empire for millennia. They remind us that even the simplest symbols can carry profound meaning, guiding not just trade but the very essence of a civilization. As we leave the fertile banks of the Nile behind, our journey takes us to another cradle of civilization, ancient Mesopotamia, where the Tigris and Euphrates rivers carved a landscape of innovation and exchange. From the hieroglyphs of Egypt to the cryptic markers of Mesopotamia, the story of ancient trade is one of resilience, ingenuity, and the unyielding human spirit. But before we step into the world of Mesopotamian merchants and their clay tablets, let's take a moment to appreciate the Egyptians, whose hieroglyphs remind us that even the most ancient symbols can speak volumes about the past. Between the Tigris and Euphrates rivers, where the Fertile Crescent cradled one of the world's earliest civilizations, Mesopotamian traders carved out a network of commerce that connected cities, cultures, and empires. At the heart of this bustling trade were cryptic markers etched into clay tablets, carved into stone, or painted on the walls of temples and markets. Among the most intriguing was the cuneiform star, a symbol that served as both a navigational guide and a cultural touchstone. To the untrained eye, it might look like a simple geometric shape, but to a Mesopotamian trader, it was a beacon, signaling the presence of bustling markets and sacred temples where goods like textiles, pottery, and metals were exchanged. The cuneiform star wasn't just a practical tool, it was a reflection of Mesopotamia's deep connection to the heavens. The symbol often appeared near temples dedicated to gods like Inca or Ishtar, where traders would offer prayers for safe journeys and prosperous deals. These temples weren't just spiritual centers, they were economic hubs, where goods from across the Fertile Crescent flowed in and out. The star's celestial association also made it a universal symbol, understood by traders from Babylon to Assyria, regardless of their local dialects or customs. This shared language of trade allowed goods like woolen textiles from or copper from Anatolia to move seamlessly across vast distances, linking distant regions in a web of commerce. What makes these markers truly fascinating is how they reveal the sophistication of Mesopotamian trade. The cuneiform star wasn't just a static symbol, it evolved over time, adapting to new markets and technologies. For example, as the use of bronze became more widespread, the symbol began to appear near metalworking workshops, guiding traders to sources of this valuable alloy. Similarly, the rise of pottery as a major export led to the star being etched near kilns and production centers, ensuring that merchants could easily locate the finest wares. These markers weren't just about navigation, they were about innovation, reflecting the dynamic nature of Mesopotamian trade. The Fertile Crescent wasn't just a geographical region, it was a melting pot of cultures, ideas, and technologies. The cuneiform star and other markers facilitated not only the exchange of goods but also the spread of knowledge. Babylonian mathematics, for instance, influenced traders from as far away as the Indus Valley, while Mesopotamian legal codes shaped the way contracts were negotiated and enforced. These markers were more than just signs, they were symbols of a shared civilization, uniting people across the ancient world. As we leave the fertile lands of Mesopotamia behind, our journey takes us eastward to another cradle of civilization, ancient India. There, a different set of cryptic markers guided traders through a landscape of jungles, rivers, and bustling marketplaces, creating a trade network that rivaled even the Fertile Crescent in its reach and influence. But before we uncover the secrets of India's ancient trade routes, let's take a moment to appreciate the Mesopotamians, whose cuneiform star reminds us that even the earliest symbols can illuminate the paths of progress. In the fertile plains of the Indus Valley, where the rivers Indus and Saraswati once flowed, one of the world's earliest urban civilizations thrived, and with it, a sophisticated system of trade that connected distant regions through cryptic markers etched into small, intricate seals. These seals, often made of steatite or terracotta, were more than just decorative pieces. They were the lifeblood of the Indus Valley's commerce, serving as both identifiers and safeguards for goods like cotton, beads, and precious stones. Carved with symbols and animal motifs, these seals were stamped onto clay tags or directly onto goods, ensuring their authenticity and origin as they moved along bustling trade routes. The most iconic of these symbols was the unicorn seal, a recurring motif that has puzzled historians for decades. The unicorn, likely a stylized bull or a mythical creature, wasn't just an artistic flourish, it was a mark of trust, signaling that the goods bearing its image came from a reliable source. Cotton, one of the Indus Valley's most prized exports, often bore this symbol, ensuring that traders from Mesopotamia or the Persian Gulf knew they were receiving the finest textiles. These seals weren't just about commerce, they were about reputation, creating a standardized system that allowed goods to move seamlessly across vast distances. Equally fascinating were the geometric patterns and script-like symbols that accompanied these animal motifs. While the Indus script remains undeciphered, its presence on the seals suggests a level of administrative sophistication that rivaled even the Mesopotamians. For example, a seal found near the ancient city of Lothal, a bustling port and trade hub, might feature a combination of the unicorn symbol and a series of script-like markings, indicating not just the origin of the goods but also their destination or value. This system of marking allowed traders to navigate a complex network of routes, from the riverine highways of the Indus to the maritime paths of the Arabian Sea. What makes these seals truly remarkable is how they reflect the interconnectedness of the ancient world. Indus Valley cotton, prized for its quality, reached as far as Mesopotamia, where it was used to create luxurious garments for the elite. Similarly, beads made from carnelian and lapis lazuli, marked with unique symbols, found their way to distant markets, becoming symbols of wealth and status. These markers weren't just practical tools, they were cultural ambassadors carrying the identity of the Indus Valley civilization to far-off lands. As we leave the bustling markets and riverbanks of the Indus Valley behind, our journey takes us to a land of ancient traditions and vast, untamed landscapes. From the cryptic seals of the Indus to the trade networks of ancient Australia, the story of commerce is one of resilience, ingenuity, and the unyielding human spirit. But before we explore the secrets of Australia's ancient trade routes, let's take a moment to appreciate the Indus Valley civilization, whose seals remind us that even the smallest symbols can carry the weight of an entire world. Long before the advent of maps or compasses, the Aboriginal peoples of Australia mastered a unique and profound way of navigating their vast and varied landscape. These ancient pathways, known as songlines, were more than just physical routes. They were living maps, encoded with stories, songs, and rituals that guided travelers across deserts, mountains, and coastlines. At the heart of this system were cryptic markers etched into the land itself that served as both navigational aids and cultural touchstones. These markers weren't just practical tools, they were a testament to the deep connection between the Aboriginal people and the land they called home. Songlines are often described as maps made of music, with each marker tied to a specific song or story that describes the features of the landscape. For example, a rock formation might be remembered through a song that details its shape, location, and significance, allowing travelers to navigate vast distances without ever losing their way. These markers weren't just about geography, they were about memory and identity, embedding the knowledge of the land into the very fabric of Aboriginal culture. A traveler following a songline would sing the corresponding song as they walked, using the rhythm and lyrics to guide their journey. This oral tradition ensured that the knowledge of the land was passed down through generations, preserving both the physical and spiritual connections to the environment. But songlines weren't just for navigation, they were also vital trade routes, connecting distant communities and facilitating the exchange of goods like tools, ochre, and ceremonial items. Ochre, a natural pigment used in ceremonies and art, was one of the most prized commodities, and its trade was often guided by these cryptic markers. A songline might lead to a sacred ochre mine where the pigment was extracted and then carried along the route to other communities. Similarly, stone tools and ceremonial items were exchanged along these pathways, creating a network of commerce that spanned the continent. These markers ensured that even in the harshest environments, trade could flourish, linking communities in a web of mutual support and cultural exchange. What makes the songlines truly remarkable is their dual role as both practical guides and spiritual anchors. Each marker along the route was imbued with meaning, often tied to dreamtime stories that explained the origins of the land and its features. For example, a waterhole might be marked by a story about an ancestral being who created it, ensuring that travelers not only knew its location but also its cultural significance. This blending of the practical and the sacred highlights the Aboriginal people's holistic understanding of their environment, where commerce, navigation, and spirituality were inseparable. As we leave the sunburnt landscapes of Australia behind, our journey takes us across the vast expanse of the Pacific Ocean, where another ancient people used cryptic markers to navigate the open sea. From the songlines of the Aboriginal Australians to the celestial navigation of the Polynesians, the story of ancient trade is one of ingenuity, connection, and the enduring human spirit. But before we set sail into the world of Polynesian wayfinding, let's take a moment to appreciate the Aboriginal peoples, whose songlines remind us that even the most barren landscapes can be rich with meaning and life. The vast Pacific Ocean, stretching across more than 60 million square miles, might seem like an impossible expanse to navigate without modern tools. Yet, for the Polynesian people, the ocean was not a barrier, it was a highway. Guided by an intricate system of cryptic markers, Polynesian voyagers crossed thousands of miles of open water, connecting islands and cultures in a trade network that spanned the Pacific. At the heart of their navigation were the stars, waves, and the stories passed down through generations. These markers weren't just practical tools, they were a testament to the Polynesians' profound connection to the natural world and their unparalleled skill as seafarers. The Polynesians relied heavily on celestial navigation, using the stars as their guide. Specific star patterns, known as star paths, were etched into their collective memory, each one corresponding to a particular direction or island. For example, the rising of the star Arcturus signaled the path to Hawaii, while the Southern Cross pointed the way to New Zealand. These star paths were more than just navigational aids. They were woven into chants and stories, ensuring that the knowledge was preserved and passed down. A navigator or wayfinder would memorize these paths, using the stars to chart a course even when land was nowhere in sight. This celestial knowledge allowed Polynesians to traverse vast distances with remarkable accuracy, linking islands like Tahiti, Samoa, and Easter Island in a web of trade and cultural exchange. But the stars weren't the only markers guiding Polynesian voyagers. The ocean itself held clues, from the patterns of waves to the behavior of birds. Wave symbols carved into wooden sticks or passed down through oral traditions indicated the presence of distant islands. For instance, a specific wave pattern might signal the approach of a reef or a sheltered lagoon, while the flight patterns of seabirds could point to land over the horizon. These natural markers were meticulously observed and recorded, forming a living map of the Pacific that was as reliable as any modern chart. The Polynesians' ability to read the ocean's subtle signs was nothing short of extraordinary, allowing them to navigate with confidence across one of the world's most challenging environments. Trade was the lifeblood of the Polynesian network, with goods like taro, coconuts, and volcanic glass moving between islands. Taro, a staple crop, was often exchanged for tools or ceremonial items, while volcanic glass, prized for its sharpness, was used to create cutting tools and weapons. These exchanges weren't just about survival, they were about connection. The Polynesians' ability to navigate the Pacific fostered a sense of shared identity among distant communities, binding them together through trade, marriage, and cultural practices. Each voyage was a journey of discovery, not just of new lands but of new relationships, creating a network that was as much about people as it was about goods. What makes the Polynesian trade network truly remarkable is its resilience and adaptability. The cryptic markers used by Polynesian navigators weren't static, they evolved over time, incorporating new knowledge and adapting to changing conditions. For example, as new islands were discovered, their star paths and wave patterns were added to the collective memory, ensuring that the network continued to grow and thrive. This dynamic approach to navigation and trade highlights the Polynesians' ingenuity and their deep respect for the natural world, which provided both the challenges and the solutions for their voyages. As we leave the star-strewn skies and rolling waves of the Pacific behind, our journey takes us to a very different landscape, one of ice, snow, and endless horizons. From the Polynesians' mastery of the open ocean to the cryptic markers of ancient Arctic trade routes, the story of human ingenuity and connection continues, proving that even the most extreme environments can be navigated with skill, determination, and a touch of creativity. But before we explore the frozen pathways of the Arctic, let's take a moment to appreciate the Polynesians, whose star paths remind us that the sky is not the limit, it's the map. The Arctic, a vast expanse of ice and snow, might seem like an unforgiving wilderness, yet for the Inuit people, it was a place of opportunity and connection, where cryptic markers carved into ice and stone guided them through some of the harshest conditions on Earth. These markers, etched with symbols like the snowflake and the walrus tusk, were more than just navigational tools, they were lifelines, enabling the exchange of furs, ivory, and tools across a network of trade routes that spanned the frozen north. The snowflake, for instance, wasn't just a beautiful pattern, it was a practical signpost often found near safe passages through treacherous ice fields. To an Inuit trader, this symbol meant a reliable path, free of hidden crevices or unstable ice, ensuring that precious goods could move safely from one settlement to another. Equally important was the walrus tusk, a symbol that marked coastal trading posts where ivory and furs were exchanged. Ivory, a prized material for tools and art, was often traded for furs or metal implements brought by distant communities. These markers weren't just about commerce, they were about survival. In an environment where resources were scarce and the margins for error were slim, the walrus tusk signaled a place where communities could come together, share knowledge, and support one another. It's a reminder that even in the most extreme conditions, human ingenuity and cooperation can flourish. What makes these markers truly remarkable is how they reflect the Inuits' deep understanding of their environment. The snowflake, for example, wasn't randomly placed. It was carefully positioned based on generations of knowledge about ice formations and seasonal changes. Similarly, the walrus tusk often appeared near areas where walruses gathered, ensuring that traders could access this vital resource. These markers weren't static, they evolved over time, incorporating new knowledge and adapting to the shifting realities of the Arctic landscape. This adaptability highlights the resilience of the Inuit people, who turned a frozen wilderness into a thriving network of trade and connection. As we leave the icy expanses of the Arctic behind, our journey takes us to a new frontier, one where the ancient trade routes we've explored are preserved and studied, offering us a window into the past. From the cryptic markers of the Inuit to the efforts of modern archaeologists and historians, the story of ancient trade is one of endurance, innovation, and the unyielding human spirit. But before we uncover how these routes are being preserved for future generations, let's take a moment to appreciate the Inuit, whose mastery of ice and symbol reminds us that even the most barren landscapes can be rich with life and meaning. As we journey through the remnants of ancient trade routes, one question lingers: how do we ensure that these cryptic markers, these silent storytellers of human history, are preserved for future generations? These symbols, etched into stone, carved into ice, or painted on temple walls, are more than just relics of the past. They are windows into the ingenuity, resilience, and interconnectedness of ancient civilizations. Preserving them isn't just about protecting artifacts, it's about safeguarding the stories they tell and the lessons they hold. Archaeologists and historians are at the forefront of this mission, working tirelessly to document and protect these markers before time and human activity erase them forever. Take, for instance, the ancient Incan road system, where symbols like the condor's wing and sun disk are being meticulously recorded using modern technology. High-resolution 3D scanning has become an invaluable tool, capturing every detail of these markers in ways that traditional methods simply can't. This technology allows researchers to create digital replicas, ensuring that even if the original symbols are damaged or lost, their legacy remains intact. But preservation isn't just about technology, it's also about collaboration. Local communities play a crucial role in this effort, often serving as the guardians of their cultural heritage. In the Sahara, for example, nomadic tribes have long preserved the knowledge of cryptic markers like the camel's footprint, passing down their significance through oral traditions. Archaeologists are now partnering with these communities, combining traditional knowledge with modern techniques to create a more comprehensive understanding of these ancient trade routes. One of the most inspiring examples of preservation comes from the Polynesian voyaging community. Traditional navigators or wayfinders are working with historians to document the star paths and wave patterns that guided their ancestors across the Pacific. By blending ancient wisdom with contemporary tools like GPS mapping, they're ensuring that the cryptic markers of Polynesian navigation are not only preserved but also revitalized, inspiring a new generation to reconnect with their heritage. The importance of these efforts cannot be overstated. Cryptic markers are more than just navigational tools, they are cultural touchstones, embodying the values, beliefs, and ingenuity of the people who created them. When we preserve them, we're not just saving symbols, we're honoring the human spirit that forged connections across deserts, oceans, and mountains. As we near the end of our journey, let's take a moment to reflect on the legacy of these markers. They remind us that trade routes were never just about goods. They were about people, about the bonds that unite us and the stories that endure long after the caravans and ships have disappeared. In our final section, we'll explore how these ancient trade routes continue to shape our world today, proving that the past is never truly gone. It's woven into the fabric of our present. As our journey through the cryptic markers of ancient trade routes comes to a close, it's impossible not to marvel at the ingenuity and determination of those who came before us. These symbols, etched into maps, carved into stone, or painted on temple walls, are far more than mere navigational tools. They are windows into the lives, cultures, and innovations of our ancestors. Each marker tells a story of connection, whether it's the Silk Road traders who braved deserts and mountains, the Polynesian voyagers who navigated the vast Pacific, or the Saharan caravans that turned a barren desert into a bustling trade network. Together, they form a mosaic of human history, reminding us that even in the most challenging environments, people found ways to connect, trade, and thrive. What makes these markers truly remarkable is their ability to transcend time. While the empires and civilizations that created them may have faded, their legacy lives on in the goods, ideas, and traditions they helped spread. The spices that flavored medieval Europe, the jade that adorned Maya royalty, the gold that fueled Persian power, all of these were made possible by the cryptic symbols that guided traders across the world. These markers were more than just practical tools. They were bridges between cultures, fostering a sense of shared humanity that continues to resonate today. Preserving these markers isn't just about protecting artifacts, it's about safeguarding the stories they tell. From the high-tech efforts of archaeologists documenting Incan roads to the traditional knowledge of Aboriginal songlines, the work being done to protect these symbols ensures that future generations can learn from them. They remind us that trade routes were never just about goods. They were about people, about the bonds that unite us and the shared struggles and triumphs that define our history. So, what secrets might these ancient maps still hold? Could there be undiscovered markers waiting to be found, or stories yet to be deciphered? The beauty of history is that it's always unfolding, always offering new insights and surprises. If you've enjoyed this journey through the cryptic markers of the past, let us know in the comments what trade route fascinates you the most. And don't forget to subscribe for more explorations into the mysteries of our world. Together, we'll keep uncovering the stories that connect us, one cryptic symbol at a time.